So thank you, by the way, to all our subs. We got SD Gaming here. SD Gaming, where are you calling from?
I'm from Irvine, California.
Irvine, California. Hey, that's a great profile picture on Discord, by the way.
Oh, thank you. That's my friend right after he threw up.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
What do you want to talk about on the show?
So my topic is that it seems kind of a troll of the last place teams such as Dignitas and 100 Thieves to keep cycling between longtime veterans. And I think that they should really look to be developing new talent and trading for academy talent, such as some players in like Cloud9 Academy, in order to get a new face of their franchise.
So you said it's Dignitas, and who's the other team?
100 Thieves was the other main one. Sorry.
I would say Immortals probably a little bit more than even 100 Thieves.
I mean, 100 Thieves just pulled a kid out that has been playing this game for like 2 years, right?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna bring that up as the one exception with Immortals. I was just saying that their new roster is so like, it's so recent that I don't know if I would apply it to them as well.
Okay, but I mean, we have like Huhi in the bot lane, Golden Guardian. Like there's examples. So I'm glad we have this call because I feel like there's been a wave of people that are like, hey, Academy is better than people think it is for players and folks that are coming out of there. I don't know, Mark, have you kind of picked up on this too? It feels like this is
there's a fair amount of it going on.
Like, there's a new wave of hope and hype for Academy. Goldenglue, I feel like you're a great player to talk to about this stuff because you've been around for a while and you know Academy players, you know the Cloud9 Academy players in a lot of cases. So what is your take on this?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot to this conversation, more than just like, is Academy just better than we thought it was this whole time? Is Academy did it just get better? Is there something experienced players versus new players? Like, there's a lot to unpack in this conversation, so it's kind of hard to talk about it all at once.
Well, unpack it all. Go. Throw it out on the bed. Empty the suitcase out.
Unpack the most important boxes.
My teammate Travis. No, but like I guess like just to talk about, is Academy, like, are the top Academy teams better than the bottom LCS teams? And I think it kind of has been true for a while that the top Academy teams can beat the bottom LCS teams. We subbed in our full roster on Cloud9. I want to say it was 2018, maybe it was even 2019. I don't remember when. And we like hard slammed Echo Fox. I'm pretty sure it was Echo, or maybe it was Clutch. I think it was Clutch. Yeah. And we just hard slammed them, and it wasn't even close. And it was a full Academy roster. It was like one of the fastest games of the split. So it's definitely been this way for a while, where like the top Academy teams can beat the bottom LCS teams, but it's not necessarily that like every single Academy player is better than like the LCS counterparts, right? I would say that there's probably a lot more to you when you're on a bottom team. Your team morale and your camaraderie or whatever is really low. Your trust in your teammates are really low. But when you're in the top of Academy and you're beating everyone, you have a lot better like belief in your system and your teammates and your team. And like you can just play the game better than if you're on a bottom team in the LCS. If you're a player on the bottom team in the LCS, you're trying to look the best that you possibly can and like stay in the LCS, right? Like that's what you're trying to do, and that's not necessarily the best League of Legends gameplay. So like I do think, yeah, like a lot of the Academy players are better than we think they are, but they also will have a lot of problems. Like they won't just come in and smurf. They'll come in and they'll smurf a couple of games, but they'll also int if you give them more games. Like they need time to like practice and learn and grow. So it's really not a fair comparison, but that's just like a really short-winded 2 cents.
Do you I'm going to ask you a pretty pointed question here. Hopefully you don't take offense, but do you feel as though there are players that have been in the LCS and have had too many chances? And I ask this in part because some people levy this criticism about you. They say Goldenglue has been on all these different teams. He hasn't found success. So, I mean, what do you think? You know, are there players that are out there like this? Do you think that this could be applicable to you?
So, okay, there's definitely something I want to talk about like the players being given too many chances. Like maybe that's some people think it's like I don't know if any player thinks it's actually. I don't know. Like there's definitely this is also kind of complicated for me when I hear the argument of like, oh, I saw it on the Reddit thread about my tweet longer. There's people saying like, oh, he gets on teams because he's like a nice guy and like such a good person to be around. I'm like, no, you fucking idiot. Watch this Academy game where I smash every Academy mid laner for 2 years And like, there's a reason I got moved up. Like, fucking watch the games. Like, don't just listen to fucking people saying I'm a fucking nice guy, right? Like, I'm a good teammate. Like, I try to be. I do my best. But like, watch the fucking games. Like, there's not like all these insane players that just don't get moved up because they're not given a chance, right? Like, that's just not how it works. You know, like, so I wanted to get that out of my system. Fuck, I even forgot the question. I just really
You're
ranted
looking at.
there.
I feel like you're looking at Twitch chat.
Dude,
Look at
everything
Twitch
you
chat.
said, I've just been like, I wish we had like tweet likes or something so I could like +1 pretty much everything you've said so far. Pretty much like even going back to the other points about like, yeah, of course a bottom team, if you make a bottom LCS team play a top academy team, like just the morale levels are so different, have such a huge influence. Like everything you said so far, I'm super in agreement with. The other thing Travis was saying was, do you think it applies to you? Obviously, I think one of the things you're about to say was like, I don't think any player will ever feel like that applies to them. Most likely, I don't think any player. If a player admits to themselves that they've had enough chances and they should retire, I think probably most would. I would think.
Another thing the community doesn't fucking understand is like, it's so much harder to get another chance after like something doesn't go well. Like, it's not easier when you have most people would much rather pick up a player that has like no history, right? That he's a brand new fresh talent, because it's like, oh, people will go like easier on him and like he could grow to be whatever, right? But you have to work even harder when you've had an opportunity and it hasn't gone well. And it's not like this experience, I wouldn't say, like, at least for me, it's never been a case where like that makes it easier for me to get on teams. It makes it harder for me to get on teams, and I have to work harder to break that barrier.
Okay, so here's the only counterpoint, Goldenglue, and I feel like there's a lot of different players that you could say like, all right, but it feels like these people are not having a hard time finding teams again. Are you looking at Twitch chat? I feel like you're
Yes.
looking at Twitch chat.
Let them look at Twitch chat. Look at Twitch chat nonstop.
It's so distracting. I need him here with me.
Okay. I was listening to keep going.
I love him to death, and I hope he's not going to be upset with this. And I'm not trying to say he doesn't deserve a spot, but I think a lot of players would, or a lot of fans would say, Apollo is a player who has like been in the league forever and has struggled to find consistent success. And I literally make jokes with him in every interview at the start of the split where it's like, so did you ever unpack at your old team, because it looks like you found a new one again, right? And so in those cases, like, what do you say about those situations where like it's hard for me to imagine that there are a lot of teams out there that are so willing and much more would prefer to take a chance on like a new player that nobody's ever heard of before, when you see players that like consistently make it back. And maybe like Apollo is just reliable and consistent, and that's why you get him on your team, because you know he's going to be okay down there. But like there are other players I could name as well where it's like this player just keeps flopping over and over again, and like they keep getting picked up. And I know Mark can think of some players right now off of his head, you know.
Well, to chime in on that too, I think there's a difference between like a player who hasn't worked out yet and a player who you have seen them be significantly better than they are right now. Like those are two different, like, career trajectories matter to me too.
Yeah.
Like, is Goldenglue right now, or last split, playing on Golden Guardians, does he look worse to me than he did when he debuted on Dignitas in 2014? Does he look worse to me than he did on C9 when he was subbing in with, holy shit, Jensen? Like, you can look at people's career and kind of like, subjective a little bit, but at least see if they're doing better, and you can check their solo queue and see their effort levels and stuff. And I think someone like Goldenglue, who doesn't seem to have gotten worse by my eye, who might have just gotten replaced, but I don't think that means he shouldn't get another chance in the future. Whereas there's some people who I've seen, they're getting worse time over time and still getting chances. Like those are different career trajectories. Even if they've gotten the same number of chances, like just looking at their those kinds of things are different to me.
Can I add in on what you were saying a little bit? Kind of with the point that some players are getting worse, I think that also applies to kind of like the franchise identity. So like, for example, players such as Phoenix that are coming into Dignitas, like no one's like, no, they're not really gaining any new fans because those players are coming in. But I feel like, let's say they brought in maybe like Palafox or something, like they brought in players from Cloud9 Academy. Like personally as a Cloud9 fan, I would be interested in watching Dignitas's games if they brought them in to follow what the Academy players are doing. And I think that can really bring, more fans to some teams that don't maybe have as many as the top teams.
That's kind of like a different angle, right? Like that's
yeah.
Okay, so let's bring it back on track because I don't think we got the final thought from you, Goldenglue. Like, are you so confident that teams are willing to take a chance on like a new player whenever it does feel like, to my point, we've got players that have just been around for a very long time and switch teams all the time. To Mark's point, we have players that seem like they're on a downward trajectory and like it doesn't seem like they're going to bounce back to where they were previously. Like it is hard to feel as though teams are willing to take as many chances as I think you feel they are.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely see what I completely agree with Mark. What Mark was saying, it's totally kind of dependent on the career trajectory, right? If you're this player winning all the time, and then now you're not winning at all, like you could be like, hey, is he just getting that spot because of his name in the past? I think that's like an argument you could definitely bring up, but I think something really important to bring up is just watching their current play and not really comparing them always to their past self. I think, like, for example, I think Bjergsen was one of the number one people that people compare to his past. And they're like, man, he's not good as he used to be, whatever, yada, yada. But if you just, like, he had a different name and you're just watching this split like it was his first split, you'd be like, yeah, this player's pretty good. Like, he's pretty fucking good. I mean, he maybe not be the clear best or maybe even clear top 3, but, like, he's definitely solid. So you kind of, like, I would just urge people to watch the players and, like, pretend like this is a new season, new split for them, and just try to forget the past when you're thinking about them. And are they playing good enough now to keep their spot? I think that's really the thing that matters the most.
I know we said we were going to speed run these calls, but this was such a good conversation, and Goldenglue popped
I'm
off.
fine. I'm fine taking longer on calls that we're passionate about.
Yeah,
like,
Mark.
Sorry,
I was just going to say, do you have any rebuttals or any thoughts on this?
No, I was going to move along a little bit to what the caller was just talking about in terms of like.
Well, let me one more second clarify. I'm not flaming Apollo. I think it makes sense that Apollo has these roles because he's able to consistently do fine. I just feel like he's the type of player who hopefully is not going to take too much offense whenever I drop his name, whereas I think there are some other players that would be very
picking on the nice guy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I was going to say on the caller's point about, like, I totally agree. I think some teams have completely botched their, like, roster building. You know, like, I don't think it's about a single player on Dignitas, but they're almost all 10 players, even if they haven't reached their peak, like we've seen them in the LCS before, literally all 10 of them have had over a split starting at least, aside for, I mean, Johnson's the newest one, but even like JJ, the backup for Afro, you know, that's not to say these guys should be kicked out of the league or anything, but I'm just saying that's, to me, horrible roster building from a GM level where you have zero eye for future, you know, talent that you are trying to, like, evaluate or something. So when you start subbing in players, like, there's no one to be excited about if you're bad, because your entire roster was built, all 10 players, to not be bad, and then you're bad. So then what do? You know, like, I would just call that, like, a really strange way of building the roster. Not that it's any individual player's fault for being on that roster or anything. And so, like, that's why, to the point about getting Palafox or whoever, like, I would love to see more mobility. This was something one GM talked to me about, was like mobility of academy players, so that when a team like Dignitas happens, like, I doubt Dignitas could really make that many moves without shelling out. And even then, it's kind of not worth shelling out to see if talent will develop, because you can just try and snag them later or something. You're not going to make Worlds this split, so wait till next split when you actually can. But I would love to see some Riot rules to free up player mobility, so when a Dignitas happens or an Immortals or whatever, they have the ability to grab a Palafox without needing to drop a ton of a boatload of cash for a 3-month investment that doesn't actually really matter. I don't know what that means. Like
Like a
out.
loan?
Yeah, something like that. But I would love to see that explored more, because I don't think as much as I'm mad at Dignitas's maybe decision to build this roster, I think it's a little too difficult for them to go and grab the treats and say like, okay, Afro's been decent, but we already know that. Let's go try treats in the LCS, and let's go get this guy, and you hodgepodge a new team together. Like, that would be great if they could, but I don't think they can.
Yeah, totally agree.
I mean, I can think of one instance when a player was loaned to another team to save them from relegation. SD Gaming, any final thoughts or shoutouts before we move on to the next caller?
Just a few shoutouts. Shout out to my Draft Buff League, and also please do not vote for Kanye.
Thank you for that. Oh, by the way, on the Draft Buff thing, I just want to say, I've heard from a lot of people after our sponsorship ended that people were sad that a Hotline League Draft Royale did not exist, and we are talking to them. So it might not be a thing where you see them necessarily appear as a sponsor on the show, but if the community really likes the idea of a Hotline League Draft Royale or Travis's Draft Royale, because maybe you enjoyed connecting with people, we'll see what we can do. Thanks, SD Gaming, for the call.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. All right. Looks like we got our next caller.